Okay, live stream time. See how this goes. Still talking to myself at this point. Hello, Carl. You're the first person in, so welcome. How are you? Been a little while since I've done a live stream, so I thought it was about time. It's actually on my old computer, so it's well, the live stream actually is in more speed. Have you had a busy day? So, Carl, you know how this goes. Just see if we could get a bit of generic feedback, or get more participation to keep it going. Not really. Not really. Not really busy day. Yeah. Likewise, I've just done the dishes. My parents are on a Norwegian cruise right now, so I'm home alone. Done the dishes. I've yeah been watching reviews of Stanley Kubrick's Eyes Wide Shut. I mention that later in the video if more people join in. Have you seen the movie Eyes Wide Shut? Trust the sound quality is okay. Maybe a little bit of a lapse with the comments, so I'm okay. Maybe I can introduce that later in the video if other people come in. I mean, I would do it now, but otherwise I'd just be repeating myself. Me and the other, great to see you live. Me and the other eye, welcome. I think the way I work this is, yeah, it is what it is. It's just a live stream, nothing specifically planned. It's an opportunity for subscribers. You guys and girls can just ask me questions. But ideally, these should work with, say, a minimum of about 4 or 5 people. Less than that sort of fizzles out. But I've had a good live stream going where we get up to 5, 10. Yep, absolutely, Carl. In fact, after this, I'm going to read the newspaper on that. Newspapers, I should say, the Times, and I think the other one I got was one of the tabloids on the death of Prigozhin. Can't say I'm overly surprised. The only thing is, it took a bit of time. Maybe because, had he been killed immediately after the coup, it would have been too obvious. And it is interesting that the events in Niger have happened since then. So maybe Putin decided to just use him a little bit longer to show up support, so Russian influence in Africa. So your video on Cambly the other day, and I have a couple of burning questions for you in this case. I'm also a tutor, as you may know from our last chat on live stream. My situation mirrors yours. Have you changed your username? I'm sorry, I have to be honest. I don't remember your name from the last live stream, though I have to say that it has been a while since I've done a live stream. Me and the other eye. Um, the Indian market saturated a myriad of these tutoring jobs. I'm actually helpless. The wisdom within I. Okay. Um, yeah, I think I remember that name now. So what's your question? I'll try and help if I can. Um, to be honest, I'm a bit. Um, you introduced me to live streaming actually. Did you suggest it? Because I've been doing this for a few years. So I apologize. I genuinely can't remember. Um, but I'm pleased you did because it's good format. Um, yeah, it's not just Cambly though. It's Preply is another one that I've had problems with on your old channel. Yeah, that's why I didn't recognize you because you've changed the name there. Um, so what's your question about? You mentioned that you actually have a question. Um, I mean, to be honest, when I applied to Cambly, I half expected it. I wasn't overly surprised that they responded the way they did. And you know what really irritates me about it? They were very polite in the rejection. They weren't rude about it, but it was just inexplicable. I mean, I'm an experienced tutor and no reason. And they say they cannot. because of this, the amount of people that apply, they can't give individual feedback. But it seems to me if you're going to reject someone, there's a reason for rejecting them. It just pisses me off that they couldn't even be bothered to do that. It's just the whole process of it, because when you're struggling to get by, it's not fun. I have actually managed to get one of my old students to come back, so that's something. But even that is, negotiating prices with his father, and it's not great money. It's really not great money. I wanted you to hop on. Do you mean hop on to the live stream thing, or? Right, it was more rhetorical actually. I just believe that the flood of applicants, especially from the Southeast Asian market, overhauls these portals and doesn't give them a reason to act capriciously. I mean, I'm looking at it from the point of view of an applicant. I don't see really who the other tutors are. I know there's a Filipino lady that I actually met on a dating site. There's a whole thing about her. I'm not going to go into it here, but she went on to one of the tutor platforms. So it's like, yeah, I think you could be right. I mean, the thing is with you mentioned Southeast Asia. I don't know what that is. I mean, it's something like Cambly. I don't even know. I assume it's in an English speaking country, but there is just a lack of. It just pisses me off. There's a lack of accountability because, if you, let's say, for example, you get shortchanged in a shop, right? You could go in and say, I've not got the right change. Maybe not a great comparison, but if you, I'll give a better comparison. If you get, like, I don't know, if you get some problem on eBay or Amazon, there is some recourse. But with these teaching platforms, there's just no accountability. They've got no address. It just, like I said in the video, I don't think they're necessarily a scam because there are people working for them and there are students getting lessons, but I'm kind of disgusted about the whole approach. Particularly galling is the way they actively, try to get teachers and it's just. You've heard about the whole Nadine Dorr situation. Actually, just in the last 5 minutes, quite honestly, Carl, I couldn't care less about Nadine Dorris. I'm not dismissing your point. Just I don't care for her, and I actually would compare her to Marjorie Taylor Greene. I mean, she is to Boris Johnson what Marjorie Taylor Greene, the U.S. Congresswoman, is to Donald Trump. She's just this blind supporter of, like, he can do no wrong. She's not as extreme, but I don't think there's a great loss in Parliament without her. Quite honestly, that's how I feel about Nadine Dorris. So there's going to be another by-election, no doubt, another headache for Rishi Sunak. See how that goes. Me and the other eye, you said you had actually a specific question about Cambly. Sorry, I made me miss your question. It's weird because as a freelance programmer and writer, I'm a bit stressed about the future of online freelance work, and of course the expectation versus reality. The problem is that it's becoming the meme. Sorry for changing the subject. No, don't worry about that. I mean, the thing about these live streams is they're very, very informal. Yeah, I mean, I've trained as a freelance journalist, and I'll be honest with you. 2 years since I graduated, almost in October, it will be 2 years. Now, it's not like I'm applying every day and I'm trying to get, an article published every day. It's not like that. But those times I have tried to reach out to an editor, I've either been rejected or ignored. And quite honestly, I'm an ambitious person, and I hope maybe I could do something with this channel, but it's just damn frustrating. You've asked me. I just want to know more about your position. So for instance, low pay. This is a live stream, so I'm a little bit more comfortable perhaps going into a bit more personal detail, but you'll understand if I don't necessarily do this in videos on the channel, simply because although I trust my subscribers, it is very personal because it's to do with my financial background, which is very challenging, quite frankly. I'm not fully unemployed and I'm not actually signing on, but money's a constant headache for me. That's the reality. Thank you. Thank you for saying that. I appreciate it. Sometimes I make videos that are very candid, and people have said to me discreetly, "Oh, Nathan, maybe you should be careful about talking about that," like the online dating thing, for example. But I sort of take the view nothing is too taboo for this channel. I never show graphic content. I'm always careful about copyright, but I'm prepared to talk about anything that I think is important and that I have some experience. So when it comes to this situation, I mean, to be quite honest, there's three of us in this conversation right now, and even if some others join in, maybe five, six, seven maximum. So I feel quite comfortable talking about this. Now, if this was a live stream of hundreds of people, maybe not so much, but for the sake of this context, yeah, my situation is not great. It's not. Um, I'll be 38 on the 1st of September, and I do wonder where the hell I am in life. Some of you guys are younger than me. Um, I don't think I'm an old man, but I'm approaching 40, and it's terrifying. That how much have I done? That's the question. Your situation mirrors mine. Why didn't you ever go into the workforce, the corporate workforce? I personally find the workforce as we know it just too stressful, and after a while I fail to adjust. Well, the thing about going into the workforce, you have to apply. You have to go to job interviews. I've tried a lot of different things, but it just gets into a hole. To be honest, I've often thought, yeah, maybe I'd like a life where I just have a 9 to 5 job. It's not that I've specifically avoided that. It's just that, frankly, I haven't had much luck with job interviews. So I've always fallen back on tutoring because it's something that I've got experience in. It's something that I've done. It's really crap money, to be honest. It's just enough to get by. Um, I've worked in China as a teacher. I'm actually signed on to something called Teacher Active right now, which is it's not a teaching platform. It's actually that I would be a substitute teacher. But I'm not overly optimistic about that because the last time I was signed on, I didn't get any work. And frankly, it's not my dream job to work in the UK as a teacher. It's not, to be quite honest, I don't even particularly want to teach at this point. As I don't hate teaching, I quite like teaching, but I would much prefer to get into my journalism at this point, but it's just difficult. It's just difficult making a breakthrough. And you know what's frustrating? And maybe you can relate to this as well. Sorry, I don't know what your personal name is, but you've mentioned I have my reasons too. I'm 35. I'm really stressed, graduated in STEM, and not able to really succeed. I've heard that STEM really has that's science, technology, engineering, is it? And yeah, I've heard that that whole world is can be very frustrating in terms of getting breakthroughs. We're not alone. I have a friend. He's a bit younger than us. He's in his late 20s. Actually, he's just turned 30. Now, he has autism, which maybe exacerbates some of the way he feels about things, but he's a very ambitious guy. He's a clever guy, and he just gets very, very frustrated. Um, sorry, Carl, I'll come back to your point in a minute. Um, yeah, I mean, I've no magic wand. It's what's frustrating? I do believe in myself. It's not lack of confidence. I think I've got abilities. I think I'm a good writer. I think I could do a lot of things. And I know what I would do if I was in a position of power or influence or whatever. But it is so, so difficult to get that breakthrough. It's all I want. I just want a breakthrough. I want some stability, and it's um, difficult. Me and the other eye, you mentioned you've had anxiety and struggle and you live with your family. Have you had clinical depression, if you don't mind me asking? Because I have. And what I would say about clinical depression is it can be really, really derailing in terms of killing motivation and it gets in the way of getting on with things. Carl, there is a by-election happening in Scotland when a recall petition forced an SNP MP to stand down because she had broken COVID rules. Is that the? I haven't followed that, to be honest. Is that Nicola Sturgeon's former spokeswoman, the woman who I thought she was just an advisor. I didn't realize she was an MP. But it's Nathan because I am very upbeat and happy usually. Are you feeling down right now? Like, I mean, this particular moment, are you feeling particularly depressed? Waleed, welcome to the live stream. Sorry, I missed you coming in there. Welcome. We're discussing, well, we're discussing a by-election in Scotland and also just ambitions in life and trying to get ahead in life and our mutual frustrations in that regard. Welcome to the live stream. But I get these nightmares of my family members dying and then wake up with tears in my eyes. Um, if you don't mind me asking, are your parents, are they frail? Are they, I mean, my parents are there. My mum's 70 in November. My dad's a bit younger. Um, My dad had a heart attack a few years ago, so I think it's normal, especially for us when we have our own financial anxieties. I think fear of parents passing away is exacerbated by that because if something happened to them, inevitably there is a sort of burden on us, and I don't mean that in a selfish way, but I mean I've got a brother who's in a stable job, but yeah, it's a fear. If something happened to one of my parents, or God forbid, both of them, honestly, that's definitely one of my deepest fears. It's pretty near the top. That crime is something that makes causes me anxiety. One more is maybe getting into trouble abroad. Those three things, or another one is being alone for life. But I don't know. I've less anxiety about that at the exact moment. So you mentioned about clinical depression. Yeah, well, that's what we're talking about right now. That's definitely the theme of this thread. Carl, I'm sorry we sort of broke away from your subject, but honestly, I haven't followed those by-elections closely. Waleed, have you had experience of depression? I mean, this is the thing. So many people have. It's not like we say. There's less taboo about mental health these days, and I think there is. That's good, but I think that there's still, yeah, I mean, there is this stigma. That's a good thing. But so in the Quran, there's a ayat sentence. This is verily in the remembrance of Allah do hearts find rest. Um, well, I think, I mean, I'm sure there is. I have a copy of the Quran, Waleed, but I haven't read it extensively. I'm not a Muslim, obviously. I'm a sort of lapsed Christian, but you find similar verses in the Bible. Certainly, if you're pointing to faith finding comfort, I would agree. Definitely, it's one thing I say about religion and faith. It definitely gives a sense of stability and comfort. But the thing about depression is, it's like when a disaster happens, thoughts and prayers. Well, they have their place, but you also there's the raw reality of the situation as it is. So with depression, I mean, when I browse the Bible, it gives me some degree of peace, although I'm not particularly religious. I'd imagine it's a similar thing with the Quran. Um, but I think I don't think you need to be a theologian, but I think you need to make a connection, and I think faith is a very, very personal thing. So have you struggled with depression? Have you found that faith helps you? Because I can imagine it does for a lot of people. Um, but yeah, there's that raw reality as well. There's our earthly problems, we could say. Nathan, would it be okay if I dedicated video to you? It'd be only a couple of minutes, but I have quite a lot to say. I'd be flattered. I mean, yeah, thank you very much. Do you mean actually an uploaded video where you're talking about a subject, or? Yeah, I mean, that's cool. Thank you. I'm flattered. um, yeah, absolutely. I'll check that out. So, I imagine, I don't know if you're going to do it tonight or. Yes, I've been depressed as everyone has. I can relate. I'm worried about losing my parents, and also how it can worsen problems that you have. I don't want to waste your time. When I lose connection to my creator, that I feel lost. I'm quite close to my mum. Thanks, Stephen. Sorry, guys. I'm just reading these comments sort of as they come through. Um, yeah, I mean, for me, Waleed, I've never been an atheist. I've never, because to me, atheism is, with all due respect to atheists, I respect their viewpoint. But to me, the idea that there's nothing there, there's no purpose, that's scary. that's actually scary. I just don't see. I respect science and I respect their point of view, but the idea that there's no meaning to life other than it's an evolutionary process. It's just I can't endorse that. Um, I'm close to my parents as well, Carl. Not super close, but I get on pretty well with them. The thing about death, though, it happens to all of us. I mean, sorry to be blunt here, but our parents will pass away one day. The question is how we deal with it. I will make this anecdote. My grandparents all passed away in 2019. Both my grandmothers in 2017 and my grandfather in 2019. And honestly, I felt a bit of sadness, of course, but I didn't feel it like it wasn't an awful situation. They were old. Um, they died of natural causes, so it was sad. But if that was anything to go by, I don't know, maybe I deal with death well. I don't know. But I think for my parents, the only thing I'll say is when that happened, I remember we were coming back on the P&O ferry from Northern Ireland. I'd went to the funerals and I remember feeling I wasn't depressed about their passing because it was what it was. They were old, and I actually met my cousins for the first time in years at that family funeral. But the fear I had was now me and my brother and my sister and my cousins, we're the middle generation. So now my parents are the grandparents. So that gave me a little bit of like a reality check, I guess. Like I remember when I was a kid, my aunties and uncles would give us Christmas presents, whatever, and I would look, oh, that's my uncle. Now I'm the uncle, and it's I don't know. That gave me a little bit of hmm, getting older. It's like I'm still young, but I'm getting older. That would be depressing in itself if there was no meaning to life. Yeah, I agree, Willie. Absolutely. For people I know that have lost parents, that's when you truly feel alone. I guess it depends in what context it happens. I mean, I think one of the hardest things must be losing parents when you're still very young, like in your 20s, or that to me would be terrifying. But I think, if you're in your 40s and 50s and you've got financial stability in your own family, it's never going to be easy. And, we haven't been through it, so we cannot know directly what that is like. But I think it might be more manageable if they've had a good life. Um, you're at peace with them and you have your own family and it's I mean, I remember when my grandmother passed away, my mom handled it very well. She was tearful and upset, but she was sort of accepting of the fact. I mean, my grandmother was 97 years old. And she looked 97. I can't say she was a very vibrant 97. She was a frail old woman, but um, you know, my mum's 70. And she'll sometimes half jokingly say, "Oh, I've 27 more years to go," and stuff like that. And it's one thing I am concerned about. My mum is, and I'm keeping this in the live stream. I probably wouldn't say this in a video. My mum's partially sighted. She injured one eye as a child, so she's basically she would be blind if the other eye was gone, and that concerns me. But she's mentioned pressure on that eye, so she may go blind one day. That scares me. And I say to her, Mum, does that not scare you? And she just says it is what it is. Maybe that's the Northern Ireland stoicism. You might know what I'm talking about, Carl. In Northern Ireland, there's sort of a stoicism that people have. It's something that's known in Northern Ireland culture. My dad had a heart attack 2 years ago. He's overweight and he smokes. His health is not great. That concerns me. Um, and I guess in a selfish way, I do think, well, there's going to be pressure on me if something happens to them. So I just hope they have much longer. They're currently on a cruise to Norway for my mum's 70th birthday, and I just hope they have a good time because they've both worked hard for years and they deserve it. Um, from people I know that have lost parents, that's when you truly feel alone. I would agree. Well, yeah. Um, I mean, I think everyone fears it. I think everyone fears a parent's death, or most people do. Some people are estranged from their parents and they don't care, but most people probably fear that. It's one of the most normal things. And yet the strange thing is it's totally natural. The thing about death, it's normal, it's a natural thing. But I mean, do I fear death? In a way, yeah. I'm not terrified of it, but my fear is not achieving enough in life. Would it be a painful, uncomfortable death? You know, everyone wants to die in their sleep. That is a little bit scary. I mean, no one wants to. If you guys have seen the Final Destination films, you'll know what I'm talking about. That is a little bit scary, but you know, we cannot get hung up on thinking about it because then you're wasting life anyway. You know, if you worry about death, you're just wasting life anyway. I watched a film recently on Netflix about two girls who climb this super tall mast. It was called Fall. Basically, one of the girls, her boyfriend, her husband, had died falling off a cliff. They were like, you know, in extreme sort of activities, cliff, mountain climbing, that sort of thing. Anyway, these girls climb a super tall mast, 2,000 feet high, and yeah, it's a good movie, it's a good thriller, but I think one of them comes out with a quote about, oh, you know, what's the point of, I forget the exact quote, but something about living, you know, that living in the moment. I sort of agree, but I think you can have an exciting life and do interesting things without being reckless. If you see the film, you'll know what I mean. It's called Fall 2022. Find it on Netflix if you have that. Um, if you have it. So, guys, I'm not going to make this one too long because I want to read that paper actually on the. I've got a newspaper backlog, so to speak. In fact, I'll show you. Let's see. You may or may not know that I collect newspapers. Well, like you know, the BBC doing the papers review or Sky News. Here's my paper review. This is like papers I need to catch up on. The Times, the death of Prigozhin in Russia. The Sun, the death of Prigozhin in Russia. The Met was the only paper to lead on something different. The big lunar landing by India, and that was a big event there. Sorry, Willie, I'll come back to that in a second. The Eye, the follow up on the Prigozhin crash. The Sun and the Times, that Trump mugshot. I may well make a video about that, but not just the Trump mugshot and those historic developments, but just the general state of American politics and also that image. So, Waleed, what do you guys think about the latest variant? I must admit, it's news to me. I haven't watched the news today. Play, you're not talking about COVID. Surely they haven't come out with yet another variant. It's got all the hallmarks of being the big one. I know that everything dies eventually, but it doesn't make it any less shit. Well, Willie, what I would say, if there is yet another variant of COVID, one thing I don't think the government would risk yet another lockdown, not after everything we went through, not after last year, us finally coming out with it. Because the thing is that the 20s, I mean, the 2020s is going to be known as the lost generation. It's going to be known as a lost decade if we keep going into lockdowns. And, you know, there's varying studies on how effective they are. Incidentally, you know, I've talked a little bit about some of this stuff, and YouTube censored me. They mistakenly believed I was pushing conspiracy theories. I wasn't. In fact, I don't endorse a lot of those conspiracy theories, but simply mentioning these things could get you into hot water, which is a bit daft. Yep, another new variant that has the same script. I'm going to look this up afterwards. Was this, where was it found? Was this in the UK, or is it like, has it killed anyone yet? I mean, I will say this, and I don't want to be misunderstood with this thought. Lockdown, for all the negative side of it, the economic problems and all of that, it was a kind of reset in the sense of, for me personally, it gave me a little bit of an opportunity to step back and think, okay, this is where my life is. And quite honestly, it wouldn't necessarily be a bad thing for the world to slow down a little bit. So lockdown, just like this is it, you know, But then I remember thinking, oh God, I cannot wait till we're out of this. It's like, I remember the regret from the cinema closing and so on. Except in my city, the cinema has closed anyway because they've never managed to reopen. I mean, they've never managed to rebound Sunderland Empire Cinema. That was devastating news to me because I'm a big cinema fan and we had that cinema for 19 years. So now I have to go to Cineworld in Newcastle or Bolton or County Durham, which is expensive, a lot more expensive than the Empire. Sorry, I'm derailing. The mutations are as big as when Omicron first mutated from Delta. Do you know what the latest variant's called, Waleed? I'm going to check this out after this live stream. I know that everything dies eventually, but it doesn't make it any less shit. That's true, Carl. The only caveat I would say, maybe this is a slightly spiritual thought. Well, actually, it was said in Harry Potter, one of the Harry Potter films, when Dumbledore, I think, says, "Don't pity the dead, Harry. Pity the living." I mean, say so. I was thinking about this earlier. Let's say someone dies in tragic circumstances. Let's say they're a murder victim. It's an awful thing, but they're dead. They don't know. That's it. That's their time. That's it. Okay, whether they go to heaven or not, that's another matter. But the real pain, the real suffering is, of course, their family. So in that sense, it's a living who suffer. So I don't see death, although it can be scary, and I agree, it's shit. It also brings a sort of peace, if that makes any sense. I mean, I've always found cemeteries kind of peaceful. I'm not saying, I'm not a weirdo. I don't hang about in cemeteries, but there's something kind of peaceful about them. Some people might say scary. I think a little bit peaceful. I don't know. Truth over lies. If you're one of the ones who insisted on stay home, safe your house, you're the pro. Here we go. Here we go. Let me just say this: truth over lies. I obeyed the law of the time, and I think I'll tell you what my take on that is. And I'm not. My take on it is that initially, yeah, it was absolutely justified. It made sense, and there's a long history of that happening in pandemics. But I do think that there is absolutely negative consequences of lockdowns. Of course, there is. There's mental health effects. I'm sure you'd agree with that. So, don't mistake me for someone who's sort of calling for lockdown because I'm not. In fact, I think it would be a terrible idea. Or at least, let me put it this way: I think that the some of the mandates that came about afterwards were too draconian. I made a video recently about police accountability, and I think there are legitimate questions as to why the police were everywhere when this was going on. Yet, you get your house burgled and they're late. But if you're one of the ones who insisted on stay home, save lives, you're the problem. Well, I was in the majority. Okay. And I will say this: if during the height of the pandemic you were going around without a mask, um, I'm sorry, but that's plain selfishness, unless you had an extreme mitigating circumstance. In my opinion, it's selfish. Not to be mistaken for the other variant eras. So, B286, you have a very nice demeanor, and no doubt you're very thoughtful, but you hate truth. So, truth over lies. Well, I know how to respond to that. Thank you for the compliment, I guess, but you hate truth. My question to you is, what makes you so convinced that you have the monopoly on truth? I mean, you're a human being, are you not? What makes you so all knowing? I don't claim I know everything. I never have. I mean, but I hate truth. I mean, that sort of blanket statement is, I'm sorry, but that is rubbish. And you need to seriously listen to yourself. You have a very nice demeanor, no doubt you're very thoughtful, thank you. But then you're saying, but you hate truth. I mean, that's a blanket statement. Here's one for you: London is the capital of the United Kingdom. That's truth, right? No one's going to argue with that. It's just an empirical fact, it's just a non controversial fact. What else? This cup is a friend's memorabilia cup. That's a fact. I mean, I don't know how to even respond to a blanket statement like that. I don't have a monopoly on truth at all. Only God is all knowing, right? Well, I don't know when you joined in the live stream, but me and Waleed were talking about faith earlier on. I'm not an atheist. I have faith, or some degree of faith anyway. So, yeah, but the reason I mentioned that, you say I don't have monopoly on truth at all. Only God is all knowing. But you did say I hate truth. So I'm naturally following up. If you're saying I hate truth, what makes you think that you know what truth is? I mean, look, I've changed my position on things. I think people are allowed to change their position. I'm not so dogmatic and stubborn that I sort of say, well, this is what I believe and that's what I will always believe. I can be persuaded. What I don't do is go down rabbit holes where, for example, people won't question their own criteria or they won't use their own criteria. For example, all mainstream media is bullshit and just you're being fed propaganda and all the rest of it. But then, you won't question your own sources. I invite you to learn and know the truth, but you're too plugged into the illusion. Look, this is all you're just what's the expression? You're coming out with sound bites. You need to be a little bit more specific here. What is the truth that you're referring to? Are you talking about COVID? I mean, it's there's going to be debate about that for years. There's going to be a debate about if the correct responses were taken, if it increased mortality, decreased mortality. I mean, you need to be more specific here. I invite you to learn and know the truth, but you're too plugged into the illusion. But what makes you so special? I mean, this is the thing that I find calling about you guys. I'm talking about conspiracy fish. You talk about the rest of us being deluded and brainwashed by the mainstream media and all the rest of it. But how have you found out the truth? I mean, what secret ingredients have you tapped into? It's like, I'm willing to listen to other points of view, but don't come out with blanket statements, or at least be more specific about what you're talking about. I've watched your streams for years, so I don't think I'm brand new here, sir. Yeah, I think I've seen your comments before. And while the truth is the truth, well, yeah, absolutely. The thing is, we live in a world where information is like, the internet's more interconnected than ever before. Um, everything is online and there is so much discourse online, some of it good and a lot of it hostile. And, there's fake news, there's disinformation. I don't think any human being can absolutely know everything, right? But we have to just be rational thinkers and say this is the information is available and that is logical because it has evidence, because it has, you know it's accepting that the world's not what it seems. Well, again, Waleed, what I would say is not everything is what it seems. But here's the problem, though, when you start getting into nothing is what it seems. Firstly, I think it gets into a very, very dystopian narrative because if you don't trust anything, right, you're going to end up paranoid. You're going to end up suspicious of everything and everyone. What sort of way is that to live? I'm not saying that's your feeling, by the way, but just that's some people do look at the world that way, and to me, that's just it's a waste of life. Because it's hard to explain myself on YouTube chat box. It stifles any would-be conversation. Well, this is what we've got, so I don't know what to, I don't know what other format to have to work with this. I mean, look, I'm not censoring comments. You can be more specific here. I'm not going to censor you. But it's what was lost my trail of thought. I mean, yeah, I think it's healthy to raise questions. I think it's healthy to raise questions of authority and institutions. The problem becomes when everything becomes a question, because where do you draw a line? And this is the problem I've got with. I don't even like using the term conspiracy theorist because I don't know, it can be weaponized. But if you're questioning everything, then at what point do you believe? If you don't believe anything, then where does that leave you? Okay, truth over lies. You don't need to go into all the details, but maybe just give something specific. because you're talking in very vague terms here, and you're making sweeping statements, but you're also talking in vague terms. So, can you give me something specific? Like you're talking about truth over lies. So, are you talking about COVID, for example? Excuse me, that's your username. You're saying I need to know the truth. Are you talking about COVID? Because I mean, I guarantee you could type COVID into Google search box, you're going to find a dozen different opinions. I will say this though: I'm vaccinated 3 times over 2 years ago, and here I am, healthy. It's my 38th birthday in less than a week. I have 2 arms, 2 legs. I have no debilitating diseases, and the vast majority of people who were vaccinated, it's a similar situation. So I'll just point that out. If you've been lied to constantly, then surely by you believing the liar this time is you're not accepting the truth. Um, well, I think when people discover that they've been lied to, the response is, not, that's it. You're done with them. But how do you find out if you're being lied to? That's the question, isn't it? COVID is only one facet of Agenda 30, sir. Okay, Agenda 30. 30 referring to the year 2030? Come on, give me something. Is that what that refers to? I'm not taking the piss. I'm genuinely curious. Is 30 referring to the year 2030? You took the vaccine for the greater good, right? Yeah, yeah, I did. And for my own sake. But most people took the vaccine or some form of it. I think in Britain it was like 75% of people. Um, I mean, this is the thing. This is the problem I have with anti-vax rhetoric. People say, it's dangerous. It's about population control and all the rest of it, but they never explain how the vast majority of people take vaccines and have no side effects. One of them, I think it was the booster, I had a little bit of flu-like symptoms, but that's what it's meant to do. It's meant to like give you a little bit of the of the virus in order to build up your immune system to that. But I mean, this is the thing that this, what they will do is home in on people who maybe had negative side effects or died and say, oh, look, that proves it's dangerous. But they ignore the fact that the vast majority of people who took it or some form of it, in my case, it was AstraZeneca. And I think, no, excuse me, it wasn't AstraZeneca. I think it was Moderna. But honestly, I had no side effects. Nothing significant anyway. If you imagine a house being built, okay, yes, 2038 refers to if you imagine a house being built, okay, I'm listening. So we're using this analogy of a house being built. By the way, I'll have to, just so I'm just letting you know, I'll need to round up this video fairly soon. I want to read some of these papers and do other things, but I am listening. Each year towards 2030 are the foundations being built. After 2030, they could start building the house, okay? Is this something similar to the doomsday clock? Like impending disasters, a similar sort of analogy? So you're talking about the foundation stones of this metaphorical house, right? Well, we're 7 years away now, so for context, 7 years away. I will be 45, 40, yeah, 45. I assume you're typing. I'm just waiting for follow-up. Well, while I'm waiting, I'm going to just sort these papers out a bit. They're falling apart. Give you half of a Brazilian rainforest in this. Okay, 15-minute cities, CBDC, social credit scores implemented via your smartphone. Well, that's lucky for me because I've got a crappy little cheap phone. No, I don't really use smartphones extensively. I don't like the whole contract thing of them. Social credit scores, well, if you're talking about China style social credit scores, I've been to China and that certainly is an issue there. Um, 15-minute cities. What does that mean? What's 15-minute cities mean? One question I would have regarding, I've heard this thing mentioned about the pandemic was about population control. It was, controlled mass killing of people. But the question is why that specific point? Why early 2020? And why not, the pandemic's estimated to have killed somewhere between 6 million and 25 million people, which is a major pandemic. It ranks around the fifth worst actually in global history. But if it really was about population control, I mean, I don't know if you guys have seen the film Inferno, because this is, I mean, it's a fictional story, but so I'm not ignoring what you're saying, Truth Over Lies. I'm just reminding me of something. Just bear with me a second. Inferno is the last of the Robert Langdon trilogy of Dan Brown novels. Basically, in that, there's a billionaire who talks about population control and the ideas of a pandemic that kills half the world's population, which would be 4 billion people, far more than all the wars combined, in modern times. Um, and my point here is, as much as the pandemic killed a lot of people, if it was some sort of population control, it would have killed a hell of a lot more. I mean, that's just something to consider. Thanks for not owning a smartphone. Honestly, that's fantastic. To be honest, that's it's just practicality. They're expensive, and I don't want to get into a contract. I just don't particularly like the fashion side of them. I do have a smartphone actually, but I mostly just play games on it. And I am, assertive enough to know that, for example, Huawei phones, there is tools the Chinese government can use. There are legitimate security concerns over that. I get paid off the amount of truthers that refuse to get rid of their smartphone. Yeah. So what you're saying, Truth Over Lies, is there's even dissent in the ranks, even with your school of thought. Um, there's not universal agreement. So if you're saying that some of them use smartphones, they must think that's harmless. It's called boiling the frog. Great analogy. Yeah, I'm familiar with that analogy. The idea that the frog, I mean, but this analogy, the thing is, it's been used for lots of situations. Climate change, let's say, advocates have used that analogy that the frog's boiling and people don't notice it because it takes a long time. So it can be used for other things as well. It's a good analogy. It's a good concept, I guess, to illustrate a point. In my case, I should say that the issue with the smartphone is purely because of practicality. It's expensive. I don't like getting into a contract. And yeah, I do most things on my laptop anyway. This live streams on my laptop, not my phone. Right. If too many people died in a short space of time, then too many people would start fighting back. So, like as a scenario, let's say a billion people died over 6 months. That would be just uh, an unparalleled event, right? Um, yeah, but I mean, you say too many people would start fighting back, but we know that there's a lot of people who, uh, you know, protested about lockdown and would have a very similar worldview to yourself. So it's not like that hasn't happened. There has been a pushback, as you put it. I'm not saying I agree with that, but there has been. So it's like I just think that I mean there's another viewpoint, among conspiracy theorists, and I use that term cautiously, but that COVID doesn't even exist. So either it exists as a way of as a form of population control, or it doesn't exist. I mean, there can't be both viewpoints. It's I mean, I think that there's contradictions therein. Too many people died in a short space of time, and too many. I mean, the thing is, if you know that's the story of Inferno, the billionaire Max Zobrist is very much of this idea that the world needs to rebuild in order to, the humanity has messed things up. I mean, after the Black Death, the Renaissance came out of that, and that's something he cited. The character cited. It's a fictional story, but it's certainly got some topical issues. So I guess the issue with COVID would be, well, this was to sort of cull the world's population because we're messing up the planet. But again, 25 million people, assuming that's a bigger figure, as much as it's a lot of people, it's still a small fraction of the global population. I'm assuming there's a follow up here, so I'm just patiently waiting. I would say, as I'm waiting though, truth over lies, I would say, you've dedicated your channel to this concept of truth over lies. I'm going to check your channel out after this. I'm intrigued. Um, Chances are I won't agree with a lot of it, but I'm intrigued. Um, it's just with all due respect, I've seen these arguments before. You're not the first one. Okay, I had a colleague who was very much of this school of thought, and he always tried to persuade me to it. So it's not like you're unique in trying to win me over. I've seen this before. If too many people die, oh, sorry, if I read that. Um, yeah, so I know where it goes. I know the narrative. I see you can't discuss the things and saying, hence why it's obvious what the truth is. Well, we're discussing it, Waleed, so I don't know. I'm not quite sure what you mean by that. I might disagree. That doesn't mean we're not discussing it. I'm just waiting at the moment for Truth Over Lies to continue. I haven't got any vids. I'm afraid YouTube took down my old channel, sadly. Right. Vaccines. I see you can't discuss the things and saying, well, it's obvious what the truth is. The thing about vaccines, though, most people took vaccines, so that means we're all wrong. Or, I mean, everyone who took them, which is the majority. Which, the majority are idiots. I just don't buy that narrative. Certainly, you have situations where you can have um, collective crowd mentality and people do stupid things or inexplicable things. But I think I just don't get into the anti-vax narrative. That doesn't mean I think it should be imposed. I don't think it should be imposed, but I just don't endorse a lot of the anti-vax narrative. I mean, I recall a case of a healthy young man, and this wasn't unique, who said his natural immune system could handle it. He went out hiking. A week later, he was dead from COVID. So I'm not saying that is the natural result in every case, but I've also seen harrowing situations of people who were convinced vaccines are evil, they don't help, and then they're on their deathbed and they're saying they regret not taking them. Have you got live chat up? If not, then you will miss some comments. I think it's live chat. I should have. The settings should be live chat. Maybe there might be a little bit of a hiatus before the. Let me just check. Sorry, I'll just double check this. It should be live chat. Yeah. I mean, I'm reading all your comments. It's just there's a little bit of a lapse before they're coming through. Just because most people took multiple jabs doesn't mean they're fools at all. Okay, well, I'm pleased you're not, because the thing is, I've come across conspiracy theorists who say, they're the ones who know the truth, and everyone else is idiots or sheeple, which is a very arrogant claim to make. So I'm pleased you're not making that conclusion. Guys, I'm going to have to round this up at 10 o'clock just because I have a number of things I need to do. But it's been an interesting live stream, that's for sure. So I appreciate it. I'll go scroll back. Actually, I mentioned I would look at one guy's channel. Another guy, excuse me. Me and the other eye. Yeah. So I'm just waiting here. Hey, looks like I missed it. Tomu, well, not completely. I'm not like finished quite yet, but right. Well, EJ, you two have a good evening. Tommy, we're not quite. I'll give it another like 5-10 minutes. So if you want to ask anything, or we'd have time for another subject. I don't mind. It's okay. Because the thing about these live streams are very sporadic and no set time. So yeah, if you want to ask anything or raise any subject, we've still got a few people watching, so there's still time. I'm just discussing with Truth Over Lies the concept of truth, and he was talking about the 30 Agenda 30. Excuse me, I forget the exact name. The best truthers are very humble. Have your thoughts changed on the Notting Hill Carnival? I'm off there tomorrow. Let's hope it's not tainted by stabbing this year. I saw something about the Notting Hill Carnival earlier about the children's version or something. I don't know if you know anything about that. Honestly, Tomu, I maintain that it seems to have some deeply entrenched problems. But I also would concede maybe I came across as a little forceful the last time. So, I've never directly been to it. So maybe I was a little too forceful. But I would say there is obviously problems at the event. And even allowing for the fact it's a big event, I would say it's disproportionate compared to other events of similar magnitude. So anyway, leaving that aside, I hope you have a good time. And it isn't just violence. I mean, there's drugs as well, and there are other associated problems. Do you need to pay an entrance for it, or I mean, because it's on the street, I assume you just turn up. I don't know if there's like an entrance fee or something. I guess to specific areas of it. I mean, do you need to get something in advance? I recently, sort of changing the subject here, but I recently went to a very interesting thing, which was English Civil War reenactment at Hilton Castle in Sunderland, Royalists versus Parliamentarians. Well worth going to. It was totally free entry. I'm getting tired now, so I will call it a day. Okay, good evening, Carl. I'm quite tired myself, so have a good evening and thanks for joining in. I used to love Notting Hill Carnival, but it's been allowed to get violent in recent years. Yeah, that's what Tommy was referring to, because we had a little bit of a well-natured exchange about a year ago over the safety of Notting Hill. Still maintains a lot safer than a night out statistically. But the thing about a night out statistically, that's like the whole country we're talking about. Because you wouldn't have a single nightclub that has a bigger violence problem than the whole Notting Hill Carnival, right? Maybe one specific city centre. Um, Truth over lies. I'm sorry, I can't read your username there. What did all those people die of if COVID-19 was a lie? To be fair, over truth over lies, he didn't specifically say it was a lie, but I agree with you 100%. I mean, I don't know how people can look at what happened and say it was all fake. He isn't specifically saying that, but I totally agree with you. Um, I don't know how. I also would say this. I didn't mention this before. Truth over lies. If you're still there, you mentioned truthers are humble, right? Well, I've come across conspiracy theorists who, not content with the narrative that they don't like, fair enough, we're all entitled to an opinion. They go to the extent, for example, of harassing terror survivors. And I know in the Republic of Ireland, there was a woman who lost her son to COVID, and there is a so called truther there who went to the extent of harassing her. I forget the names off the top of my head, but to me, that's beyond despicable. So you're talking about truthers being humble, and I'm sure some are. And I would like to think that you wouldn't engage in these tactics. But the fact of the matter is, some people who share your worldview do. They go to the point of harassing terror survivors because they say they're crisis actors and so on. I'm not accusing you of that. I'm just saying that there are people who would go to that extent, and I think that's despicable. It's definitely not a convincing argument. By numbers, I mean, remember 2 million at Notting Hill Carnival. 2 million, is it that high? I thought it was more like 400,000, 500,000. Is that 2 million over a number of days? It's like, I, I don't know if it's a million in one day. That seems like a very high figure. Some truthers are very nasty indeed. Okay, well, you concede that. That's good. Um, okay, guys, I'm going to round this up in about, I'll give it 5 minutes, okay? It's actually 10 o'clock, so let's say 10 will be the cutoff point. But I don't want to finish it just yet because this is an interesting one. And there's a massive spider. Shit. Sorry. Sorry, guys, I need to catch this. It's fucking hell, that's a big spider. I'll see if you can see. Let's see here. I don't know if you could see that. It just went under the. Sorry, guys, I need to catch this thing. I'll be back in 1 minute. Bloody hell. Okay, guys. I don't know if I need to catch this thing because I have mild arachnophobia, and if I don't catch it, I know it's there. Bloody hell. It's big. It's like 2-inch leg span. Just ran across. I think I need to hoover up. Guys, just hold 2 minutes. I don't want to end this live stream, but I need to catch this thing. I can maybe show you. If you're patient enough, I'll catch it and show you. Success. Here we go. Slightly out of breath. Had to get a little slip and put it in. Yeah, that's a big one. Bloody hell. Probably, what do you reckon, 2 inches? Yeah. This is an old house. I live in a. Please, I got it. I'm going to let him out in a second, but that's just for to show you guys. Yeah, it's a big spider. I reckon. What do you reckon? 2-inch leg span? Trust it's just a house spider. Like I said, I have slight arachnophobia, so proud of myself for catching that. My sister would freak out if she saw that she's severe arachnophobia. Nope, second biggest event in the world. It's over 2 days. Second biggest event in the world. Really? I mean, there's some religious festivals in India. The Kumbh Mela gets 4 million people, and there's Mecca would get 3 or 4 million. So might be one of the biggest cultural events. I could see that. I've never seen one that. Yeah. I don't know if they're fangs. I think that's like there's a name for it. Rio, yeah. Okay, well, I can see your point. That's probably the second biggest. The biggest I've been to is a Live 8 concert, 2005, 250,000 people in Hyde Park. I better let this guy out. I don't want to suffocate. I don't mean out of the jar, bloody hell no. Damn, that is a big spider. Right, I'm gonna. I need to find like a window or something. I tell you what. You know what, guys? I better round up this live stream. I think that was maybe the sign. I have to round this up. That spider might actually be big enough to bite. Some British species apparently can. Yeah, I'm not like actually about an hour ago. I got a little spider like on my finger. I had to put it out. I mean, I'm not. Don't get me wrong. This house isn't filthy. It's just an old house, um, and still quite warm summer weather. So, but yeah, I'm the same. I mean, I can handle very small ones, but this is definitely on the bigger size of a house spider. Um, I reckon probably I don't have a rule. Okay, here we go. Let's see. Got a ruler, a rule to give its correct name. Body might be what's that? About 1.5 centimeters, and leg span must be about 2 inches. I could see his eyes. Shit. Yeah, I'm releasing this guy. Man. Right, okay. I'm going to round up this live stream and let this guy out. Thank you for participating. Some of you, I'm going to look at your channels or information afterwards. Truth over lies. I know you said you didn't have anything, but to be honest, that you're asking me to find the truth, but you don't have any material. So that's. But thank you for coming along and for offering your thoughts. Okay, guys, have a good evening, and until the next live stream, bye for now.